Yeah, I got it. Okay, I may play a little bit of Jordan Page, War Machine in the show somewhere, because we're having a Jordan Page concert this Friday on this. And Davi cool. Barker's here. We're working on a bunch of stuff, so he's sitting there. He may say, "How's it going?" Yeah, wait a minute.
Hey, man.
I'm not on. Hey, what's up, man?
Mm-hmm. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Not so bad.
Okay. And...
It's time.
Okay. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Let's go on.
It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
Yeah, the fear, to the fear, to the fear, to the fear, to the fear, here on Declare Your Independence from Ernest Hancock here in Phoenix, Arizona, from the beautiful studios of Phoenix with S, PhoenixPhoenix.com. Oh, we got a good show for you today. No commercial interruptions. We're going to do a live podcast. Video and MP3 will be up here directly, live on all the stuff with Scott Horton. Scott Horton, Anti-War Radio. Also, the Libertarian Institute. And he wrote an article. And Donna, do that for me. Print out the article that Scott wrote about Tulsi Gabbard. Because I read that. I thought I had it, and I don't have it here. But I'm really... this Tulsi Gabbard thing, I've seen maybe a total of 5-10 minutes or stuff. I don't care. The thing is that they've been going, yeah, she's the Ron Paul of it. No, she's not Ron Paul, okay? That's not the point that they're making. The point that they're making is that she's being treated like Ron Paul from the 2008 election cycle. What happened was being anti-war, not allowed. Well, Tulsi Gabbard, I just read that she's going to Indonesia as part of a deployment with her National Guard in Hawaii, where she's a congresswoman. And she's still done a couple of tours in the Middle East. She has an opinion. And there was an article written by Scott Horton going, yeah, we already know where this goes, but she needs to go all in and kind of like not so be so buddy with Israel. So this is going to be, and then of course we got the Epstein thing going on. We're going to focus on war, the 2020 election cycle, and the role Tulsi Gabbard, because Scott, welcome to the show, man. Tell me, who's the other anti-war candidate? Is there anybody?
Hey, Ernie, thanks for having me back on. No, she's the best anti-war candidate that's in the race right now. I'm pushing for Jacob Hornberger to run for Libertarian candidate. We'll talk about that later, maybe.
Oh, I got stories.
Then we have
for
a real
you,
anti-war candidate in there.
Yeah, no. Okay, let me get you up to speed on that.
You're going to get me up to speed? What's up?
Well, no, I'll what I know, and then you're going to add. Yeah, this is what happened. I had Jacob Hornberger from Future Freedom Foundation on the show back a couple of months ago. It was this summer. And had him on, and that was about I think it was a Thursday or Friday. And so I'm going, you're going to all these libertarian conventions. Sounds to me like you're running for president. If I was to, didn't know better kind of thing. He goes, well, we need, you might, okay. That Saturday, I get a call from a friend. He's a senior fellow at Cato from here, a doctor that's doing a bunch of stuff. And he was talking about something else. We had a common friend that were doing some stuff. And I go, I go, yeah, I talked to Bumper. It looks like, we know him as Bumper Hornberg. So I go, Bumper is going to go ahead and I think he's going to run for president under the Libertarian banner. And he goes, oh, well, we need to hold out for Justin Amash. And I go, Justin Amash. So he's the guy. Well, of course, he comes out and says, yeah, I think Trump should be impeached. Well, that was his, never Trump credential statement. That all of a sudden, boom, here it comes. Well, what happened is all of a sudden then you get the Coctopus gets involved. All right, here we go. We got the Koch brothers, Koch industry, Koch, and I could feel it. I went to Freedom Fest this year in Vegas, in Anarcho Vegas, and Nick Gillespie was there, Nick Sarwark, that's now moving to New Hampshire, the Free State Project, it's a whole other thing. And then some of the other guys, I could see what was going on. Justin Amash was there. Justin Amash spoke. Justin Amash. So they're going, oh, here's our anti-war. And I'm going, yeah, you know what I want? And I talked to Bumper about it, and this gentleman from Cato and so on. I said, this is what I want. I would love for there to be a libertarian primary with Justin Amash and Bumper Hornberger, Jacob Hornberger, you guys know him. So Jacob and him, them arguing over pro, anti-war kind of libertarian and how many libertarians can dance on the head of a pin, that is the debate. That is the one that I want to have. So Jacob knows I'm all in, man. I'm like, yeah, let's get some Bumper Hornberger up there on the stage. Let's go kick some ass. To the point that I think it may be a detriment to Justin Amash. I don't think they want to get in this verbal battle. And either they'll come in and overwhelm and how many people can we bust at the convention, or they'll go as an independent or something else. So that's all I know. What do you know?
Well, first of all, I called Bumper a year and a half ago or something and told him, you got to do it.
Right.
Then he called me about 6 months ago, like a year later, and said, all right, well, I'm thinking about it. And he has JacobForLiberty.com is his website with all his platforms and everything. Okay. So he still has not officially announced yet, but you're right that he's going to all these conventions and this and that. And we've talked, quite a bit about it. And essentially the deal is, not to argue libertarian angels on the head of a pin, but on the contrary, to argue radicalism versus moderation, but in what way is important, because we don't want to argue angels on the head of a pin, and we don't want to have a pissing contest over who is most anarchist or this kind of thing. In fact, neither of these guys are. They're both Constitution minarchist guys. But the thing about Hornberger is that he's radically anti-government. He's radically anti this government. He's the kind of guy that understands that to really reinstate the Constitution would be to repeal 95% of the U.S. government that we have now, to completely abolish the national security state in one fell swoop. No CIA, no Pentagon, no none of this ever again. And this is real, abolish the FBI.
Yeah. This
is the radicalism of a real, so it's not I'm more anarchist than you, I'm more libertarian than you on every single thing. It's I'm here to end what is going wrong now in the name of freedom, for God's sake. That's the deal. And that's what Justin Amash does not bring. Justin Amash is the perfect candidate according to what has always been Libertarian Party conventional wisdom, which is try to nominate some warmed over milquetoast sort of a guy that hopefully will impress a few Republicans into joining the Libertarian Party. And you know what? I'm about to do this with Tulsi too. So let me give the devil his due here. If you're Nick Sarwark and your idea is that if you're just going to have a bunch of anarchists arguing about who's most anarchist and whatever, then your Libertarian Party is going to be a joke. And by the way, I am an anarchist, but I'm just saying, in the scheme of things, no one's going to take that seriously. And you're not going to win over the swaths of the American population to let's completely abolish the state tomorrow. Now, you will get some with that, but anyway. So he's kind of right about that, right? But then, and by the way, not he, but and representing all National Libertarian Party consensus, going back decades on this, that it's better to be more business-like, more Republican-like, more professional-like, and tone down all the radicalism, and then that way to try to appeal to a broader swath of the American people. But that's the wrong opposite. That is not the answer. The answer is to be radical, but not so radical that you're talking about abolishing the USA as currently constituted kind of thing in front of strangers, in front of regular Joes. But the point is that you're talking about repealing, rolling back, undoing everything that Bill Clinton is doing, everything George Bush and Barack Obama are doing, everything Donald Trump's doing, all of this. We're in complete opposition to it. We want to undo all of it. And then that way it's things that people know about. We're not talking about, a writ of mandamus and some kind of crazy thing from old constitutional law. We're talking about repealing the Patriot Act, which says that your librarian has to rat on you. Mm-hmm. We're talking about, abolishing the national security agency reading your email. Huh?
And she can't tell anybody the government asked her to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the national security, all these things that everybody knows is wrong, right? So that is where we should go. It should be radicalism. But, the establishmentarians are right that it shouldn't be who is more anarcho-capitalist inside the LP. That's not the purpose of the LP. And we can all be anarchists, but that's not the work of the LP. But we can, from that absolutely abolitionist point of view, carry the torch for true libertarianism in modern society, what it means for how things are right now. For example, the solution to the healthcare crisis is not single payer. It's to repeal every damn law about healthcare that rigs this market in favor of supply against the customer. And that's the basic economics of what's going on. The libertarian take is the correct take on just about everything.
Yeah.
So,
do you think that's going to come out of the Libertarian Party, though? I mean,
but I'm saying yes. So that's to me the brilliance of a guy like Hornberger is something that we don't get very often. It's something that we haven't had in the LP as a presidential candidate since the days of his old nemesis Harry Brown, and that is somebody who is as libertarian as hell and is professional. Jacob is a former lawyer. He runs this institute, a no nonsense institute, the FFF. Future Freedom Foundation, ever since 1989. He writes an article essentially every single day of his life about virtually everything that's going on. So he knows all about the welfare state, all about the regulatory state, all about guns, all about taxes, all about wars, all about the CIA shooting the president in the face in Dallas in 1963, and all about whatever you got, man. He's the master of it. So, and if he really runs for president, he's going to have me schooling him on all these wars all damn day so that he's as good as me by the time anybody tries to put it to him. And also, he can do what Gary Johnson was unable to do last time, and that is to truly exploit the hilarity of having the weakest Republican and Democrat candidates you could possibly have for these positions right now. So he ought to be, whoever gets the nomination to run in 2020 as the Libertarian ought to have so much fun damning Trump and his Democrat opponent with faint praise and with, ironic statements. At least he's not as bad as her on this, and at least she's not as bad as him on that, and all those kinds of things. But coming from a real libertarian position in a way that'll make all the CNN heads explode and get us some real mileage. I mean, imagine if Harry Brown were here. There's no question, right, that we would be dying to see him in that spot. I think the same thing applies to Jacob Hornberger. I think he'll be great. And I think, you know what? I want to like Amash, but just take, for example, this thing about impeaching Trump. I mean, if you're really going to come out for impeaching the president of the United States from your own party and everything, then make it good. Hit him with both barrels. How about the war in Yemen? Not only is it illegal in terms of being an unauthorized war, it's also genocide. It's a deliberate starvation campaign, an inflicted famine against a civilian population. So let's bury him under the supermax for that. You're going to talk about impeachment. Let's impeach and remove this man and prosecute him for murder and put him in a cage where he belongs and come out like that and on the very worst thing. Instead, what has he got? Obstruction of justice in the Russiagate case? And he says, like, these are high crimes and misdemeanors that demean the office. So in other words, nothing like a real impeachable offense, just not even really a prosecutable offense.
That was his, he was on the casting couch. He was passing an interview.
That's just terrible. I mean, the thing is, if for him to attack Trump for obstruction in Russiagate, when he ought to be, playing on the irony of here's a president that I think should be removed from office for his war crimes in Yemen. And yet I'm here to tell you, if he had blasted John Brennan and James Comey and Robert Mueller on a rocket straight into the sun, I'd give him a medal. That's not obstruction of justice. That's obstruction of a secret police, illegal attempted coup d'etat against the elected president of the United States of America. They have no right whatsoever. And the worst thing in the world that Donald Trump could think of to do to John Brennan is too good for him. So how about that for the case for obstruction of justice? Give me a break.
All right, this is my thought process. I am of the opinion that this discussion that libertarians have been looking to have forever has been taken on in the on the streets. It's been flyering. It's been whatever local campaigns that you can do, and you get attention to the big campaign of the campaigns. We've been educationally campaigning. When Ron Paul ran for president in 8 and 12, that demonstrated the power of spontaneous order. All of a sudden, there wasn't a central thing that they could go after. It was the internet. And I am of the opinion that these social media, which is just, one of the guys at a blockchain discussion, Bitcoin currencies, cryptos and so on at PorkFest, I don't want to give out his name, but he's a well-known guy, and he's going on about, Libra, it's all good, these private companies, and private companies can private companies and whatever they want of private companies. And I'm going, to tell me that Facebook is a private company, man, you have not been paying attention. I go, don't be, all of this intertwining with, hell, Google is the State Department, So I'm hell no. We have to have our own internet, our own biped, decentralized, whatever. I can go on and on about that. But the thing is that all of these institutions are there to protect the government, to protect that they may complain and they may slap them around and they'll put up some theater and congressional hearings or something, but hell no are they giving any kind of voice to the kind of things that you and I want discussed as issues. And we can go on about that a little bit more, but I want to focus on this Tulsi Gabbard thing because that's from your article. And my whole point is that how did she get there? Now, I looked at her wiki, and I started looking. I'm going, okay, she's, it's 9/11, and she goes and she wants to, support in America. She gets to become in the National Guard. She goes a couple of tours in the Mideast. She has, her father was involved politically. She becomes a city councilwoman for city of Honolulu in Hawaii. Her father later becomes a senator, and she was a House of Representatives in the state of Hawaii. Then goes for Congress. She gets in there. She's a vet. She's gone through, and she says this about that, and all of a sudden she's run for president, and she's articulate. Immediately, I wasn't paying attention. When you whittle them down to the top 3, or maybe I'll look, and I don't care. But anything that I see on these, of course, we put it up on Freedom's Phoenix. We have the stories up there and such. But a little bit on Tulsi Gabbard, and I can see, man, they just dumped on her. And I'm going, why? Why her? What do they care? And it is obvious what they care. They care about her articulating that these wars suck. Well, hell no. So they definitely dump on her. But what's her kind of relationship on the Israel issue? I want to talk about that a little bit before we get into the other stuff.
Well, in the past, she's given speeches with Christians United for Israel and been pretty Zionist. I think in the past couple of years, she's been, she voted for this resolution that was actually a pretty toothless resolution against BDS, but she supports the actual pro-BDS bill. That's boycott, divestment, and sanctions. This has, of course, nothing to do with putting sanctions on Israel. It's just saying that they recognize that it's the right of America. It's just a non-binding resolution, essentially recognizing that Americans have the right to boycott whoever they want. And so
no. Now, why do
that's
they
a
have
big
that
fight.
law? Why there was legislation coming out of the states and so on. If you even criticize Israel, it's a hate crime punishable by criminal something. What was that about?
Well, what it really is in the state of Texas, for example, you have to take a loyalty oath to Israel to get any kind of government contract. So there was a case where a lady was I guess an English as a second language teacher on a contract for the Pflugerville School District in North Austin. And they fired her because she wouldn't sign a loyalty oath to Israel. Meanwhile, there's no loyalty oath to Texas or loyalty oath to the United States of America in there, but there's a loyalty oath to Israel in there.
I went to Texas for some college, and they make you take. It was community college while I was there in the early 80s, long story. But I go, I got a little extra time in the afternoon. I'm single and by myself out there working, doing whatever. And I go, I can take some classes, keep my mind going. You cannot take any college classes in Texas, certainly not the community college level, unless you take Texas history and government, which, of course, they beat into you in high school. And I did that, and you find out what? Texas can break it up into 5 states. They get 10 senators. They can secede from the Union. They're a Republic of Texas. They make a big deal out of that. The Texas flag flies at the same height as the U.S. flag. They're like, whoa. We're not subservient. So for them to say you got to take a loyalty oath to another country and not, freaking Texas, then something else is going on. And I'm going, this is not America. So this BDS legislation of you can criticize and not buy wherever you want or something, I guess was in opposition to efforts to try and make it a crime to criticize Israel, which is kind of what's going on. You say anything about Israel, you get deplatformed and stuff. So who runs this
Well, and
country?
look at what's going on. I mean, the fact of the matter is, does anyone believe for an instant that the Israeli population, or more particularly the Israeli business community, could ever be cut off from global capital flows over a boycott movement of private citizens? Of course, the answer is absolutely not in a million years. The reality is the whole thing is essentially a publicity stunt.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that, to downplay it. It's an important publicity stunt, because the thing of it is, if someone says to you, boycott Israel, then your natural reaction ought to be, why would I do that? And then the answer is, because see, they've been occupying these poor Palestinians militarily for 50 years, more than 50 years, longer than the Soviets occupied Eastern Europe. And they have no rights whatsoever. And the Israelis kidnap their children out of their beds in the middle of the night and take them off to military detention like monsters. And we're paying for it all. And it's horrible and it's wrong and it has to stop. And then people go, okay. In other words, it's a conversation piece. Yes. What's BDS stand for? Itself. It's a conversation piece. The name of the whole thing, the project itself, is to get people asking, but aren't the Israelis our friends? What's wrong with them? What's the problem?
Well, every time you say BDS,
I need to answer.
Every time you say BDS, I need you to just say what it stands for.
Right. Boycott, divestment, and sanctions. It's a move to say, don't buy Israeli products, divest from Israeli companies, take your money, any investments that you have, and take them out and put your money somewhere else. And then sanctions, this is the part I oppose. I mean, I guess unless you're Palestinian, you could put sanctions on them. That would be self-defense. But for anyone else, I'm not really for that, because that's aggression.
One thing that we went through in my age, I'm 58, born 61, graduated high school 79, so you kind of get a timestamp. And my thing is this. They did the same thing with South Africa. South Africa is, man, if you're a human being, you got to boycott and having your college boycott and your town boycott and this boycott, of South Africa and apartheid, blah, blah, blah.
And it worked.
Yeah, it worked. And
that's why the Israelis are terrified of it.
Exactly.
Hey, Scott, I got a question maybe you can answer. Whenever anybody talks about actually like prohibiting boycotting, what does that look like? Doesn't that mean that purchasing is mandatory? If it's illegal to boycott Israel, doesn't that mean that purchasing from Israel is mandatory?
Yeah. So again, it's more like the example with the state contract. If you participate, right, it's kind of impossible to
I'm
prove
not buying
if you're
Israeli
not talking
hummus
about
right
it.
now.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing.
They're
right?
talking about government contracts.
Is that what they mean when they're talking about?
Well, the cities and so on, they find out that they have some kind of tie or work with, or the university brings in, and they're paying for the guy to
So it's a
recruit
municipal
for the
thing.
IDF, the Israeli Defense forces. They come to ASU.
Colleges themselves, right? Like the state legislatures can prevent any state colleges from participating in anything like that.
So it's basically
state organization.
It's
And then-
forcing state and local governments to be lockstep with a federal foreign policy. Is that what that means?
Yeah, essentially.
what
And
they
it's
want.
not even coming from the U.S. government, right? It's coming from the Israel lobby
Yeah.
on a state-by-state basis. And legislators know that, hey, if you need financing for the rest of your political career, get good from their point of view on Israel right now. Why resist? Join the Borg.
Well,
You
this
can
is one thing
go to
that
the
you were
US
the
House.
point that you were making in your Gabbard piece, that she's right. These wars suck. But your whole point of writing this was to try and influence her to go the next step, which is what?
Well, and I wasn't really focusing on Israel-Palestine in the piece because she does have a mixed record on it, and I think she's getting better on it, and it's a little bit beside the point. But so let me say again, she's the best candidate in the race when it comes to the only issue that matters in the world, and that's the American empire.
Yeah.
So, she's not Ron, but she's better than Rand, at least mostly. You know what I mean? So that's where she is on the spectrum. Is she's between the poles. That's pretty good, And basically, it's like this. You got it right. She was deployed to the Middle East. She was deployed to basically area just north of Baghdad in Iraq War II at the Balad Air Base. And she's, got a decoration for being a combat vet. Not that she was pulling triggers in battle.
Yeah, but she had the busted bodies in front of her bleeding out. I can tell you
That's
that.
right. She was in a medical brigade there, and she quite literally saw the horrors of war in all of its wet red horror right in front of her on a regular basis. And she had to drive up and down, Mortar Alley and all of these things. They called her base Mortaritaville, I guess. This is getting bombed all the time. So she was, basically Hawkeye Pearson, a mass unit kind of situation for her or whatever out there. And so, but what that means for us is she knows the difference between who's who over there. And I think you and I have talked before where even the chair of the House Intelligence Committee a few years ago, Sylvester Reyes, some enterprising reporter asked him, hey, what's a Hezbollah? And he goes, oh, I don't know. Well, where do they live? I have no idea. Well, are they Sunni or Shia? Psh, you tell me.
There's a difference.
Right. And yeah. So, but she's been over there. And so she actually does understand the difference between what's a Hezbollah and what's not Hezbollah, for one example. So as you and I have spent many years talking about, especially in the context of the war in Syria, is that the policy of the Obama administration was just absolutely as ludicrous and crazy. I mean, insane, like paranoid schizophrenic crazy, as it was treasonous for 5 years straight. Well, 4.5 something years, maybe more, 5 years, backing essentially Al-Qaeda in Iraq from Iraq War II in Syria. And Tulsi Gabbard was sitting in the U.S. House saying, are you kidding me? Just the same as I was saying to you on this show, is saying, look, Ernie, here is who. And Obama's got us on the side of the guys that you would think, if his mandate was counterterrorism, would be the enemy. But no, they're the ones we're supporting because America hates Iran more because that's what Israel wants and that's what Saudi wants. And so we have this policy where our government prefers our enemies, the American people's enemies that our government created for us in the first place, of course, but who have shed innocent American blood in against their strategic rivals in the region, who actually are not our enemies, who have actually done nothing to us.
That's side. One thing in the article you went through over the years. We've talked about this, and I remember when you were focusing on your book fool's errand about Afghanistan, I was screaming Yemen. I'm going, come on, Scott, man. This Yemen thing's coming. I can see it. Sure as crap. Well, what happened was, you talk about it here, AQAP, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Well, they just keep coming up with new, initials, 3 and 4 letter initials on these guys. And usually when it's a U.S. agency, it's 3 letters. When it's bad guys, it's 4. I don't know. That's just their standard, okay? But so then you get Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Then you have the Shiite and the Sunni, and you got different names that are, they keep saying they're with this group, but no, now they're with this group, and they keep changing. Well, Tulsi knows this. She knows what they're talking about, like what you keep trying to do. Like in your thing here, it says you were talking about Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning and Snowden. All these guys are sitting in jail or near, and they're just exposing well, that's the crime. You're not allowed to explain this to anybody. The problem is that Saleh took these dollars and weapons and gave them all to Al-Qaeda and the Yemeni Muslim Brotherhood al-Islah, and used them in conjunction with the National Army in order to attack a group of Zaidi Shiites in the north, the Houthis. Well, the Houthis beat Saleh's forces back time and again, and then 12 combined with the Arab Spring protesting. It goes on and on and on and on of who was what and when, where, and how. Oh my God!
I have an excuse. So let me explain myself. I wrote that letter. I wrote that article to her.
I know.
And what happened was, my friend Gordon Prather, remember him, the nuclear physicist from the Bush years, who used to write for us back when?
Yeah, no, I do.
Blah, 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 Sunni, Shia, Houthi, this and that. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. You lost me like at paragraph 3. And I says, yeah, I know. It's okay. I wrote the thing for her to read. And in fact, it originally had many parts of it were like you this and you that. And I went back and edited it and changed that so that it wasn't directly to her in that way anymore, because I didn't want to seem too pretentious about the way it was written. But the point of it is that she knows this is my starting point with her. I disagree with her about all whatever Democratic politics positions she has on essentially everything. What I know about her is that she spent her time during Iraq War II figuring out who was on whose side over there, so that when Obama put his insane policy in Syria as well as the one in Yemen, that in both cases has us fighting on the side of Al-Qaeda against their enemies, she screams foul and says no way. She even had a bill called the Stop Arming Terrorists Act, which failed because she was saying, and that's real. I mean, look it up, the Stop Arming Terrorists Act, because she was saying essentially exactly what I've been telling you, that, our establishment hates Iran and the Shia more. So they got us on the side of Al-Qaeda, like 9/11 and Iraq War II never happened, but they did, and it's not okay. So, but here's the thing, and here's why that article is sort of attacking her, or it's saying, hey, lady, shape up and fly right.
Take off the other glove.
Yeah, it's because she's saying, no, but the war against the terrorists, I'm all for that. And not only that, she's even come out recently and said, listen, we have Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. We have Al-Qaeda in Idlib province in Syria. We have Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab tied to Al-Qaeda in Somalia. And then she finishes with, unbelievably, like something out of the Bush years, she finishes with, there are hundreds of these groups around the region. And it's like, no, there are not. You just named 3. And in all 3 cases, she can tell you as well as I can that it's all USA's fault that they've been able to expand that ground and have that territory to grow in and fight in the first place. But now hundreds of these groups. So now anywhere there's a Sunni male with a rifle, America's at war forever. I could have got that from Dick Cheney or Barack Obama.
Okay, now this is what your main complaint was, is that she goes on and see the first problem. This is you writing to her. But it has not been enough to change the game. Here's a big part of the reason why. Tulsi is trying to appease or actually agrees with the Hawks on some things, but the Hawks are not right about anything. Better would be to just go ahead and get it right, then fight them. The first problem is framing the good war on terrorism as contrasted with the bad regime change wars. And you're saying that her appeasement to they, them, those in Israel and so on, all right, well, yeah, maybe we need to go kick ass on some bad terrorists that we created, but this regime change thing needs to stop. And then that brings up the fact that she met with Assad, which I don't have a problem with. I mean, you want to go meet and talk and tell, and we know and talk about, I don't care. But what happens? Meghan McCain comes back and, slams on her. Oh, she met with Bashir Assad. She's like a bad guy. And then I think she whenever she's accosted with that information, she goes, "Oh yeah, let me tell you what's going on." And then she's very articulate. She pushes back, and then the MSNBC host gets like Tucker Carlson eyes and goes, "Yeah, but you met with him." It's just I like having this exchange. I like talking about this. Let's talk about her meeting with Assad. I'm sure you got an opinion.
Okay, sure. All right, so now we're back on the question of her being good on the war for terrorism, which I 100% support her position here. And you can tell if you're critical, even if you don't really know who's who, say you're brand new at this, but you're a critical thinker, and you look at the way they attack her. I mean, the Meghan McCain one is the great example, one of the best ones, where Meghan McCain says, to her face, to a decorated combat veteran, current active duty National Guard major and congresswoman, who in all other cases we are all supposed to bow down and kiss her feet, right, at the airport, give her up our seat and whatever. But in this case is a disgrace, of course, as you're saying, right? Not allowed from the beginning. You are a bad guy. We all are against you is the frame of everything about her on TV. But anyway, so the disgusting Meghan McCain says, when I think Tulsi Gabbard, I think Assad apologist.
Well, of course she's going to say that. That's her talking point. You're going to hear that forever.
Right, exactly, because that's all she's got.
I want to hear about the meeting with her and Assad. Why did she do it? What did she get out of it? What's the, I don't have a problem. I'm sure she's happy that she did it. She wanted to know what's what. What did she find out?
Well, look, I wasn't there for that, but setting it up, though, it's important that this is what they think is the best attack against her, is that she would dare to have this meeting. Now, when she went over there, she says she didn't even plan on meeting Assad. The opportunity came up on day 3 of the trip, and she took it. I don't know if that's really right or what, but in any case, whatever was said between them, her story has always been that, of course, the guy's a dictator. He's basically the equivalent of Saddam Hussein.
Of course, she's an elected official in the United States. They're all bad.
And I'm just saying, look, he's a bad guy, but he's not an enemy of the United States. He's a bad guy, but his enemies essentially are all Al-Qaeda guys. And so we ought to stay out of that, and we ought to seek a peaceful resolution if possible, but we sure as hell shouldn't be backing Al-Qaeda against him, which is a perfectly sound position. But so this is actually a problem, I think, for her, because they keep bringing it up, like Kamala Harris brought it up. She slammed Kamala Harris for trying to keep an innocent guy on death row and deny him the opportunity to have new evidence examined, for God's sake. And slams Harris for that in the debate. And Harris on TV later goes, "Oh, yeah, but you love Bashar al-Assad." She loves Bashar al-Assad. I don't have to listen to what she says. She loves Bashar al-Assad. And then whenever they asked Tulsi Gabbard about this, on MSNBC, she said, "You guys keep asking me about this, and that's not fair, and this is propaganda," which she scored maybe a point there. But she could have scored many more if she had really fought for the truth of the matter. And this is an opportunity, and as far as I have seen, she does not take the opportunity to say, listen, you guys demonize Assad all day to the point where you cannot even comprehend the reality. He's the guy with the 3-piece suit and the clean-shaven chin who's fighting a bunch of Al-Qaeda suicide bomber terrorists. I'm not saying back him. I'm just saying we should not be backing those terrorists against him. Do you understand, stupid CNN lady? And go ahead and say it like that, because she doesn't. And so she ends up they are really successfully selling the narrative that she just loves dictators, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, because they do the same thing with libertarian. I've been running for 30 years. I know how it works. And when they do, we have records here that You don't even vote. And I go, oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. And a bunch of experienced media guys there that know me going, oh, God, you never say that to Ernie. And so I'll go on a thing. Well, why would I, blah, 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 blah. And you give your spiel on it or, the pitfalls of, and, I get to complain because I don't, it's just a lot of things that you can do to the point that they don't ask the question ever again. Maybe she wants them to keep asking it. Maybe she wants that to be the thing all the way up until she just beats the living crap out of them, because I think she's smart enough to do exactly what you're talking about.
Maybe.
But if she beats the crap out of them now, then they'll go to something else. She's like, that's all you got? Cool. Bring that on. Let's talk about it.
That's true. And you know what? In fact, as long as they are confident that her weakness is her foreign policy, you're right. That gives her an opportunity to chip away at them, essentially, right? To keep making her
really
point, but not enough that they realize that they should shut up about it yet.
At her young age, she's barely old enough to be president? She's in her 30s or something, isn't she?
Yeah, I think she's 38.
So at 38, she's already been to war 2 tours. She's still in the National Guard. She's heading off to Indonesia right now for a 2-week thing. She's city councilwoman, Honolulu in Hawaii. She's a state rep. She went to be a U.S. rep, now running for president. This is not an inexperienced individual with a politician father that is, I don't know how great and wonderful they're perceived by, and how many dead bodies they have or don't, or how many children love them, or what kind of charity. I have no idea, because I don't care. But I am looking at when people compare her to Ron Paul, it's not policy. What they're comparing her to is the attack that they go after her because she's anti-war.
Let's take a minute to examine the left wing too, where she fits all of the check boxes of their identity politics.
National health care and communist, socialist, whatever the hell.
Well, but she's a woman. She's an ethnic and a religious minority.
Boom!
She's a combat veteran who's anti-war, and then that's what they don't like about her.
She's
Instead
Hindu.
of having that as her strength, that's
Hindu?
what's got them running
Hindu.
scared, is that she's an anti-interventionist in any way.
Well, how does this Hindu thing play? I'm not even familiar with, Hindu. I'm thinking they're like, pro-life. They're like, don't step on ants. I mean,
Hinduism is huge, and there are so many different variations. That's not nearly enough information to know much about it at all.
Well, her mother is Hindu. She looks Caucasian, so I don't know how that happened.
There are a lot of. There was a British colony in India.
Famous guru in Hawaii that her and her family were in his little church or what have you.
Well, she chose Hindu, and her father's not. He's something else. I don't remember.
But you can read about it. She's talked quite a bit about it.
Well, I just went to a wiki. When they started hammering on it, I go, well, who the heck is she? I go to I go, ooh, and ooh, and ooh. But, there is, she's not ready to take on Israel, directly. What's her position in dealing with them?
Well, like I said, I think she started off, pretty unabashedly. I got to say, man, she ain't reliable. I want to say that she went from more hawkish to getting better on it. But at the same time, I can kind of see her in a way as being, sort of akin to the Frank Gaffneyite type of neocons who, again, as she loves to declare, she is a hawk on terrorism. She's a hawk on this and that, just not the other thing. And
well, hawk on terrorism where? Do I gotta send my kids somewhere?
And
what does that
mean? According to her, pretty much anywhere where a Sunni's got a rifle, we still have to fight. And so check this out, man. You guys might remember from the worst days of the Syrian war that people like Pamela Geller and Frank Gaffney and Robert Spencer. Not Richard, the racist, but Robert Spencer, the anti-Muslim, crusader
Jihad
guy.
Watch.
Different guy. I'm sorry?
Yes,
exactly. Jihad Watch.
Org, I think is his website.
Yeah, so
that guy's a piece of work, man.
Yeah, of course, all of those guys, and they're really bad guys. But their thing, and I think I have this right to include the names I've included there as my examples. They were against regime change in Syria. They were saying it's the same thing I'm saying, essentially. You want to overthrow the guy in the 3-piece suit in favor of a bunch of head chopping jihadists? who are guaranteed to kill all the Christians or Druze or Shia or whoever won't convert once they take power. I mean, this is crazy to be backing on Nusra like this. And the reason why is because they hate and fear Muslims so much that in this case, they hate and fear the bin Ladenites more than any larger strategy against Iran's influence with Assad. Who cares about that? You know, what's a couple of missiles to relatively responsible Hezbollah, you know, compared to having a bunch of, you know, rabid bin Ladenites on your northern border? And so, in other words, there's a certain kind of neocon who's so right-wing and anti-Muslim that anything that smacks of Islam at all is to be avoided to such a degree that they fell outside of the typical neocon consensus, which hates Iran more and is willing to tolerate these jihadists. And I think at times she reminds me of those guys where, you know, it isn't, again, that she's really a non-interventionist. It's just that she's smart enough to know the difference between who's who. And if you tell her, hey, Ahrar al-Sham are moderate rebels, she'll say to you, no, they're not. I know better than that, and can't be duped into that. But at the same time, neither can Pamela Geller. And in fact, just like in the, you know, Trump campaign, Tulsi Gabbard was saying that this is a problem with Hillary Clinton, is she won't say radical Islamic terrorism. And that's another major point I'm trying to make in that piece. That
No. That, I remember this is a big thing in the 08, 12, whatever. I think it was Rudy and these guys. Oh, yeah, it was Rudy Giuliani. Because he got paid like $100,000 every time he said radical jihadists. God, what was it he was saying? He would say... It was. Do you remember they had God.
Yeah, I guess part of just radical Islamic terrorism.
Yeah, Islamic terrorism, radical Islamic terrorism, Islamic terrorism.
Islamic on the payroll of MEK.
It was constant, and I'm going. This is like a psyop. It's a brain thing. It's just a repetitive. If you say the lie biggest and loudest enough.
What's the psyop? The psyop is that Islam is an overly broad definition when the whole context of what's happening over there is this massive sectarian war touched off by America in 2003. And so if they're saying radical Islamic, what they're really saying is, don't you ask whose side, which radical Islamists. You're just supposed to hate and fear all of them, which means in practice they can get away with backing some against the others. And of course, as I continue to repeat, to beat it into everyone's head, to back the ones who actually attacked us against the ones who actually did not.
Well, what are you hoping is going to happen in this election cycle? I mean, I'm with you, brother. Man, I am. With Hornberger in this race, you're going to have these discussions. This is what I'm afraid is happening. This is I'll tell you straight up. What I think is going on is the Never Trumpers know that they cannot win in 2020 with Trump versus whatever the hell the Democratic pool is going to be. They have to have somebody that they build up, even at the risk of libertarianizing people, to pull from the Trump enough so that the Democrat
agree. Wins. They will try to use Hornberger against Trump, which
should be hilarious and
wonderful. Yeah, because all Hornberger has to do is just say, all right, congratulations to the president for this thing he did. But boy, he ought to be in jail for that other thing he did. And then say the exact same thing about Kamala Harris. Or you know what I mean? Whatever it is. And just make a great joke out of it and exploit the hell out of those CNN people. Because you saw the way they treated Gary Johnson. Ooh, maybe we can use this guy against Trump, they thought. And so they tried to promote him. But he wasn't ready to exploit that. But Hornberger will be. Hornberger will be like, yes, imagine a world without the CIA. That's right. It does not have to be this way.
Yeah, see, to me, I mean, I know a lot of people won't agree, and tomorrow we got Trump Report, Dr. Frank, man, he'll go all over on it. But my thing is I'm going, look, a world, and certainly a United States, exposed to the clean, pure, rationalized line of thinking, even though you may be a pro-life or a pro-choice libertarian, to have a consistent view on that issue by a libertarian that argues either side from a principled standpoint, then you know from educating of how their mind thinks or how libertarianism works and down to the rights of the individual, whether you think it's before or after birth kind of thing, that you can be consistent in expectation of what their position would be on something else. That's what they don't want. This critical thinking George Carlin skill thing is what scares the living shit out of these guys. They do not want a libertarian articulating pure, clean libertarian thought, unlike what Barr did, unlike what Johnson did.
I disagree. I think that they're not afraid of us at all because they don't understand it. They think it's Looney Tunes, and they think that if anything, we can be a great foil to be used and abused for their ends.
No, I give you two things. I'm
glad that they think that because I think they're wrong.
Yeah, no, I give you
that we get a better opportunity than we would typically get out of them.
I went through this before. I understand your point, and we thought the same thing. Back in
look at 2016, they gave Gary Johnson every opportunity to get out there and say something
because he had Weld locked at the hip, and Dave is part of the plan. You know,
did you see the one where he's on the park bench and he sticks his tongue out at the girl and he's acting, and she's just like, "Ew, you're creepy. What's going on with you?" I mean,
no. Okay, let me make my point, and you'll understand. Okay. In 2002, it was, they've said for like a decade before, well, libertarians, you don't have a contested primary, so we don't include you in primary coverage. Oh, you don't do this, you don't pull that, you don't do something. By 2002, all of a sudden, we're dominating. The internet's starting to go a little bit of broadband. We're starting to have, getting a lot of stuff out there. Like, woo, them libertarians. Well, we had a primary between Barry Hess and Gary Fallon. And Gary Fallon, I was supporting him, and Barry, doing his stuff with the other guys. And the argument, they said, all right, we're going to let you have access to the editorial page, and the same questions we asked the Republicans and Democrats, we're going to let the libertarians participate because that's hell of human beings that we are. And behind the scenes, what I knew talking to these guys, what they were doing, we're going to let everybody see how crazy you guys are. So when the discussion between the libertarians on who can be more libertarian in the thought process of, that was totally night and day from the R's and D's and their little stupid bullshit that they were doing. The libertarian arguments over the position, they would argue the same principle, maybe have a different opinion, but they were learning something. The next election cycle, from then on, hell freaking no. No way in hell are we going to have the libertarians get access to the mines through our ink on paper like this again because it jacked up Arizona. And then you have, unrestricted concealed carry, you get, liberalized on this, you get the marijuana
I agree. I hear what you're saying, but all I'm saying is that CNN and MSNBC are looking at it through those eyes of the people that you described at the beginning, thinking that, oh, good, we're going to showcase the libertarians.
Yeah, and I'm hoping I hope they haven't learned from all these other examples when you do that.
No, I mean, think of the arrogance.
Cool, bring it on.
The CNN anchors and the arrogance that they have. I mean, they thought that they were disappointed to find out that Gary Johnson was useless, even for them to use against Trump. He was willing to be used against Trump. He just couldn't figure out how to be of any use.
Yeah, no, I know Gary pretty well, and it was just no.
He's a nice guy. I like him, but whatever. I'm just saying CNN's idea was, let's get that Johnson guy on there and see if we can do some damage to him, to Trump, to whatever we can, see. And I just think Hornberger's smart enough that he ought to be able to play on that great. And just be like,
oh yeah, no. That's why I want him, because he's not going to pull. I may not agree with every little thing. I mean, I don't know I don't know anything. I tell you what, I know a bumper well enough that he spoke at 2 of our Freedom Summits. I've had him on the show a long time. Our first Freedom Summit, he was the keynote speaker 3 weeks after 9/11 at our first Freedom Summit in 01. And I'm going, his whole thing was Constitution. Even back then, I'm going, look, man, Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights, that Constitution thing, that's just, I don't know what you're talking about when you say Constitution. Are you really talking about the power of eminent domain, the power of the war, the power of the tax, the power to control commerce, the power of the war, I'm like, what the hell? I might as well just call him king. And so maybe he's talking about, all the limits the chains that are holding it down by the Bill of Rights or something like that.
That is what he means.
I'm sure it is, but I'm just like this idea of governing. I'm not going bumper. I'm not but it'll play well to the populace out there. He will do the Ron Paul thing. He will go. What is Article 2, Section 8 or something? All the powers of government or something, and he'll detail and educate the populace on this. I know that that's what they don't want, but what you're saying is they're too stupid to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing too. I do think that, and also Hornberger's the just right kind of libertarian for that job of presidential candidate. Where just exactly like Harry Brown, he has the exact same position where he's Mr. Constitution, but he will also tell you in the same conversation, we don't need taxes at all. We could repeal the income tax, replace it with nothing. The rich and powerful of this government really think we need a government. Let them fund it voluntarily, and quit, fining and forcing all the regular people just trying to get by in life into paying into this death machine. And here's the other thing that he's so good on is saying that, look, after World War II, they grafted this alien national security state system on to our constitutional republic. And what we have to do is just repeal the National Security Act in 1947 and all the rest of it. Get rid of the Pentagon. Get rid of the NSA. Get rid of the CIA. We don't need them at all. And no, I'm not sorry. Get a real job so America could be a free country again. And no, they're not legitimate. No, they don't deserve the presumption of legitimacy. They haven't won a war since 1945. They spend $1 trillion a year killing people.
They don't want to win wars. They want to fight them.
But that's the thing is he can talk about that. And he's great to me, when he talks about it, it's easy for me to imagine a constitutional republic of the Washington Monument and the Jefferson Memorial up there. And then this Pentagon, this alien CIA, NSA Pentagon system grafted on top of it, where it doesn't belong. It's not part of what the constitutional system is supposed to be. There's a War Department, but it used to be in a little office building over near the White House. Not this entire massive bureaucracy, this empire of its own across the Potomac there. And the whole thing is crazy. And Hornberger ain't playing it at all. That's what I like about it is, he talks like a lawyer. He doesn't say, cuss words like I do and stuff. He acts right. And then he says, listen, it doesn't have to be this way. Okay. I know they told you it did, but I'm just here to tell you it's not true. And in fact, and I think it gets across, you mentioned George Carlin. Carlin was great about that too. Oh, this whole construct of stuff we're supposed to believe in, forget that. That's not right. Don't be stupid. And then boom, it's like you're cured, right? Snap right out of it. I think Hornberger can do that. He better run. And here's the other thing.
Well, what do you think?
I think it'd be great for the Libertarian Party because I think a lot of great libertarian movement people will join the party to support him. I know I will.
Well, what do you think? Is he going to do it?
Yeah, I do think.
I think he wants to.
I mean, I admit I put him up to it essentially. But I think he is up to it. And I think he was really against it at first. It didn't. He was thinking about it.
I'm sure it didn't take a whole lot. I mean, he wanted to run in 2000. He even made.
Yeah, that's true. No, I think he was pretty over it. But I gave him the third degree, Ernie. You know me. And then he called me like a year later and said, "Okay, look, I've been thinking about it, and here's my new website." So I don't know who else he was talking about with it. Maybe it had been on his mind all along, and I was just chiming in. But I don't think so. I think I kind of convinced. I want to take a little credit because I was pretty hard on him. I sort of told him he had no choice.
Well, no, it's been.
I think it'd be great.
I think he's got a lot of. I tell you, in 2000, he was discouraged from doing it. His problem, he had some problems with Harry Brown, as did I. Harry Brown was a lot better candidate, compared to what we got now. But back then, we were looking for some hardcore go get him, and he was pretty good. It was his campaign. It was the Libertarian. I really needed to separate Harry Brown. Later on, we reconciled. He spoke at a Freedom Summit and kind of made nice, but.
Well, his real heroism was in his great anti-war stuff after 9/11. He was as good as Ron Paul. He was a heroic leader of our movement during the worst, darkest time there.
Yeah, and the Libertarian, that was one thing in 2004 when the Libertarian National Convention was in Atlanta. Charles Goyette and I went there, and while Neil Bortz was going on in a program of the paid extra breakfast to get to see, a national talk show host tell you why we got to go kick the shit out of Afghanistan. And, Charles and I go, look, here's a couple of talk show hosts that says this is bullshit, and you guys are going to go down the tubes on that, which was the goal. The Libertarian Party can be taken over 10,000 here, 10,000 there, 100,000 here for, the low price of $550,000. You can take over an entire party with national ballot status and do whatever the hell you want. And that's the point that we were making. Why do you keep doing this, you stupid freaking morons? Because they look at three things. They want to know vote totals, membership subscription, how much money they got in the bank, and all that other stuff and freeing things, what the creation of the Libertarian Party was about. They don't give a shit. And I am constant. That's why I've run for national chair, 4 or 5 times, just so I can do what Bumper's threatening to do. Get up and say, are you guys serious? Are you guys, what's going on? So a lot of people do. And when it was 15% anarchist, now when I was in Orlando, it was like 35% anarchist. I'm like, woohoo, man, we're getting there. By the time we go to New Orleans, people are like, yeah, we're kind of cool. We've got a bunch of anarchists and so on. But they're not seeing the libertarian. When you say libertarian, you don't think Libertarian Party. You think Ron Paul or your crazy libertarian neighbor or Scott Horton or Ernie or something like that. You're not thinking party because they're not. At least not to the point that I want. That's why we need Bumper.
Yeah, and listen, I think that there are enough factions now that Hornberger ought to be able to please everybody. The anarchists shouldn't need an anarchist to be their guy. What they need is a radical. What they need is a hardcore libertarian who's good on everything up to a point. Obviously, that's how it is. But, you look at the litmus test, especially in the LP, not just the libertarian movement or, anarchist types, but inside the LP, you got to be good on guns. You got to be good on property rights. You got to be good on gay marriage and all those kinds of issues. You got to be good on drugs, and you got to be good on imperialism. Or don't you? Yeah, you do. And somebody's got to insist on that and say so and just say, look, bank bailouts. There's another one. Any kind of welfare for corporatists or, welfare for anyone, especially. But especially the rich, but for anyone else either. These are libertarian positions where these are the litmus tests on like the LP level. Constitutionalist, at least, even more minarchist or anarchist than that is better, or whatever. But Hornberger represents so much of that. He's got 99% of that all locked down. And, I want to mention this article because Murray Rothbard, of course, says it a lot better than I can. And it's the kind of thing that people might remember and go back and read now. It's called Do You Hate the State? And it's at LouRockwell.com. And what it is, and I'm not picking on David Friedman. I'm sure he's a great guy, and I never read the book. I'm just describing an article here. But essentially, David Friedman wrote a book called The Machinery of Freedom, which is essentially a utilitarian case for anarcho-capitalism. That, no, really, says this economist, you don't need a government. The market will take care of all of it. Isn't it kind of neat? Well, so Rothbard says, nuts to that. He says, I'll take a conservative, see, I screwed it all up. I will take a radical minarchist over a conservative anarchist any day. So if you're George Washington, Constitution, Bill of Rights guy, and you're hardcore as hell against this current government, then I prefer that to a utilitarian case for total freedom. Because the reason we're here isn't because, hey, isn't that neat? Freedom might work a little better. The reason we're here is because aggression is wrong and innocent people are being victimized and we won't stand for it. That's why we're here. We're here fighting for freedom is why we're here. And that's what matters the most, is not how many libertarian angels can dance on the head of a pin, but how severely do you want to abolish the ATF and its pension fund? Right? Like that's what, you know what I mean? This is what
you're
we're
talking about. You see, it's going to be foreign policy, and they're going to hit on that, and then maybe it's 2 against 1. If it's Hornberger and Tulsi and Trump, which would be awesome, but we'll see how that goes. But because there is Bill Weld running against Trump in the Republican primary. I mean,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, no. Anyway, so I'm looking at when they do this and they start having this discussion, it'll start to shift to domestic. It'll start going, yeah, but you would abolish, libraries and schools and this and that and everything, and they'll try and guilt him in. He goes, yeah, the separation of school and state or child and state, that would be good. These are things they do not want to talk about, and maybe they will one time, or they'll get a little blip of it, and the Google trending will start going all whatever the hell, and their analytics will be, and they'll freak the F out, and there's no way that they're going to let, Bumper do it, so it has to be local activism. And that's what happened with the Lovolution. And that's what I was telling Bumper. I'm going, look, man, you do this, I'll go stupid. We'll take care of Arizona. You guys go do whatever. They go, well, we could this and that. And I'm going, no, unless you're paying me big giant bucks and me fly around, and I ain't doing it. But, I'll be a butthead here in Arizona. I got Arizona covered. Don't worry about it. So
his biggest weakness is he's not famous. Ron Paul was at least a member of Congress.
That's how famous was Ron. Ron was just
Gary Johnson had been a governor before. So
not
I'm
enough
just saying,
it makes
to
a
them,
difference.
it matters a lot as far as access to, strangers' minds here. And I think we're going to have to think hard about how to change that. And how to, as you're saying, grassroots, stuff to promote them. But
zillion signs can you have up?
Right, really.
What if you put a vinyl QR code, silly status, taxes are for slaves, and it goes to, Bumper Hornberger's website, and it's on every freaking gas pump on the planet? I mean, I got 5 billion ideas of stuff that we could. I've been doing this 30 years. You want to get attention? I get you attention, but why would I want to?
The Ron Paul Revolution thing was you, right?
Yeah, but why would I want to? Now, Ron, I would. Ron, I knew it was going to happen. I go, are you guys really running it? Yep, talk to the hand. I won't have anything to do with the campaign. Watch what happens. And it wasn't until like May of 2007 before Ron's like, thanks for letting me join your revolution. And the reason was, he wasn't saying that to me, he was saying it to the group, but, the reason he said that is because he understood it wasn't him. It was us. He just represented it. Jacob will represent this philosophy as good as Ron. That's what they fear. And if this takes off again, as social media has developed even more since then, that's why they're clamping down on it for 2020. There are no way in hell do we want a breakout candidate to bypass our control mechanism and it start all over again, and it got dang signs on the highways. When we started putting those signs up, when we first started making them in February of 2007, in March, I think we started putting them up. In early March of 2007, we put them up on the freeways and had these real, choice locations on chain link, right where, and overpass and stuff. They stayed up for a week or two. Nobody cared. They don't know what the hell you're talking about. But boy, when they got the Department of Transportation got the memo from somebody said, man, they're up there more than 37 minutes. We're going to fire your ass. Well, man, they didn't stay up very long. So what did we do? We made hundreds of them every Friday. We put them up all over the valley. They were down by 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday, and we did it again the next Friday. And we just kept doing it. And they're just like, God, I hate when this happens. That is what Bumper has waiting for him, because I know he's not going to capitulate to their pressure, which is all the more reason why they can't have him in that position. More likely, that is, instead of going independent or another third party, here comes Justin Amash, and it's going to be all libertarian. And I saw Nick Gillespie, which is Reason, which is Coke, which is Justin, which is the same old thing, sitting there at Nick Sarwark at the Paris, the casino hotel with Freedom Fest, sitting there hatching it out. And I'm just like, yeah, whatever, peace out. And I went over and hung out with my anarchist friends. But I'm telling you, I could see it. I feel it. And at the Freedom Fest, it was supposed to be this libertarian thing. They're saying how libertarian anarchists, a little too much last year thing. Well, woohoo, let's go. Doug Casey says, Ernie, you got to go. I have Mark Skousen on that puts it on. It's like, Ernie, you got to go. So we go up there. We, had a lot of fun. And I did, Free Talk Live producing, helping, whatever. And what happens? 2/3 of the audience raised their hand as high as they could out of hundreds of people. There's probably 800 people in the audience for this debate on immigration between Candace Owen and on one side with Wayne Allen Root, gag me with a forklift. And then on the other side was Doug Casey and some guy from India. I can't remember his name. And they were arguing. Well, at the beginning, they said, all right, those in favor not of, border patrol or border this or legal immigrant, whatever, those in favor of building the freaking wall, raise your hand. 2/3 or more of the people raised their hands at a libertarian event. This is what they and they love that. If you get Bumper up there, and I remember it was the second, I think it was 05, 06, we had a Freedom Summit, and Bumper Hornberger debated Frosty Wooldridge. Frosty Wooldridge never saw a brown person he didn't want to ship off somewhere, okay? We got to have national ID or we're going to be safe and that, blah, 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 blah. Between him and Bumper, it was awesome debate. And I remember one thing that Bumper said that just, sealed the deal on this issue. He goes, isn't it amazing that it's only government that complains about more customers? And I'm like, ooh, that's a good one. I like that. That's good. So he does something like that. See, there is no freaking way in hell they will allow Bumper to have or even get the nomination to the point that they will bring in Justin Amash to make sure that he doesn't. Now, they got to be guaranteed that Justin beats Bumper in the primary, though, or at the convention.
Well, you're acting like they know what's good for them. I don't think that they do.
Nah,
I think that, and you know what? I don't know nearly enough about the Libertarian Party, and I've really stayed out of it and away from it for a long time.
That's same of same.
Well, I'm told that, like, for example, the National Party, they can really embarrass us on TV, speaking for us all and that kind of thing.
Yep.
But that when it comes to real decisions, that the state parties lead, and that the national, it's not like the Democrats and a bunch of super delegates and a bunch of things. That really, when it comes down to the vote and the nominations and all that, the delegates are picked at the state level, and they show up and do that and can't really necessarily be corralled, maybe for good or for ill. But it sounds to me like, if we get, say, all of your audience and all of Tom Wood's audience and all of Dave Smith's audience and all of my audience and all of as many people as we can to all join the party and participate in the thing in order to make sure to guarantee Hornberger's nomination, I think that we can do that. Why shouldn't we be able to do that? The only reason that wouldn't work is if we came in like we were just taking the party away from everybody who was already in there working and whatever, but that wouldn't be the way to do it, right? The way to do it would be to come in and say, here's finally that leadership you've been yearning for, to get rid of this Sarwark clown who, and you know what? I don't want to fight with that guy. My Libertarian Institute doesn't take sides and shit like that. But I saw this guy denouncing Ron Paul for being skeptical about American support for, so-called people's uprisings and enemy countries and this kind of thing, for being good on Venezuela. I mean, that kind of thing is just intolerable. That is just absolutely unbelievable, really, and intolerable. And so I think that the Libertarian rank and file people in the big ballroom on voting day, I think probably agree that that's completely crazy. And where is this guy's head if that's what he thinks is right, to attack Ron Paul for being good on Venezuela of all goddamn things? So why should it have to be this way? I don't know. And I think you know what? I want to give credit to the Libertarian Party people there who, it's not necessarily up to them. It hasn't necessarily been up to them this whole time, and they've had a bunch of Sarah Palins to choose from. So what were they supposed to do about it? You know what I mean? But if we have Hornberger running, and if we have masses of libertarian movement people from the world and the internet join for this purpose, and in the best way that we can, and provide whatever help to the LP that we can on the way doing it overall too, then that should work.
Yeah, no. This is
and
embedded.
Because Amash has a position as a former member of the House, I guess, but he's got no charisma, man.
This is to the point.
He's not a leader type,
No. This is to the point that they would submarine their own candidate if it was they showed him enough money and promise of whatever. Because I went through. Nick lives here. Nick's been to my home several times. We have dinner.
I mean, what can I say, man? If they're gonna rig it, they're gonna rig it.
Right.
But I think it's worth trying.
Are these people at the top in there? They're willing to sell their soul for the promise of whatever in the future. Yes, I saw it. with the Bill Weld thing. The Bill Weld thing, he takes him after he finally, the 15th round of whatever, and he gets to be VP. They schmoozed him. There's all my Council for Relation buddies, and there's billions of dollars sitting here in billions.
But I'm just saying, I think that the rank and file, am I wrong that it comes down to the numbers on election day in there, on nomination day?
It comes down to, in convention, that this is how it works. I'll tell you exactly how it works. I mean, going on since '96. This is what happens. They go in and they'll have filled out the states. Different Arizona's has more of a delegation than most because we have a lot of activity because it's based on party membership, percentage in presidential elections, and due payment, whatever the hell it is. So all of a sudden we get 30-something delegates. All right, well, little Arizona, we get to be somebody. So we go there, and then this is what happens. You have open seats, because a lot of times from Arizona to go to wherever the hell it is, you may not be able to fill all 20, 30 seats of it. So what happens, you have open seats. Every state is like that. Some fill them up. We fill ours up a lot of times, but there are a lot of states that don't fill. So they could be easy, only 2/3 or less of people that were elected as delegates in their state. The standard procedure is any libertarian that shows up and paid their entrance fee and joined the Libertarian, paid their $25 or $15, or I think it's $25 to join the Libertarian Party, goes to the convention, may be seated in a blank seat of any state. So you come in and you go, all right, here comes the buses. Buses show up. All right, where are we going to go? Well, you can sit here, and they fill it up, and that's how they take over a convention. I see it all the time. So this is going to be one at the state level if you can get people to go. Now, this is something that kind of scaring them. Our good friend Adam Kokesh, running for the dismantlement of the government of blah, 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 anarchist, libertarian, I'm going to be somebody, has been going for the last couple of years. He's been going to all these Libertarian Party conventions and getting a lot of his crew to come in and run for the nomination. They did it for New Orleans, and it freaked them out. So they're like, whoa. So Adam got to do his, soldier thing and had, something to say about this and determine who got that position and all that kind of crap.
Bumper better hurry if he's going to do this.
He knows this. And I tell him, I'm going, look, man, you know this, right? I mean, he's been in the middle of it. So what happens is you do what you best. That's why he's going to all these conventions. So he goes to conventions in off election year, this last year. He'll go in the next one, but there has to be a ground game. Well, that's something that Adam's good on. He's been doing it, kind of pissing him off. Well, what happens is if you don't have that, well, then you better have a bunch of people supporting, get on the buses and the caravan. They're going to the convention, and you'll be competing with other people doing the same thing. Guarantee it.
Yeah. Well, I like Adam. I wish him the best of luck in the thing. When I told him, he asked for my support a few months ago, and I said, man, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm already in the tank for Hornberger. I kind of asked him to do it. And he said, that's cool. I'm for Hornberger, too.
Yeah, no, okay. Adam is, we're friends and so on, but he's got his own. Guy, So I'm for, I'm for everybody to get up on the stage and debate it out and let's do it. I don't care.
Yeah. He was like, all right. Yeah, no, I'm totally supporting Hornberger also. As he's running against him, but okay.
Well, this is what we're looking at, and I'm not seeing that there's going to be this is going to be smooth sailing for anybody. This is something.
But you know what? I'll tell you. What do you think about this? Is this something or not that Tom Woods and Michael Bolden and Dave Smith all joined the Libertarian Party, and they didn't have a big reason to do so, an explicit reason to do so at the time, other than just, Tom has been fighting with Sarwark on Twitter or whatever it is. But if we have a mission, those guys potentially, I think, could mobilize thousands of people to join the LP. And, I don't want to overstate it because who knows, how well you can herd a bunch of cats to do anything, I guess. But, Tom Woods and Dave Smith, those guys have tens of thousands of listeners, maybe high tens of thousands on a regular basis. So I think that they could get a lot of work done.
The New Orleans convention, they had a Mises, about I don't know, probably a quarter mile down the road from the hotel in another venue.
Yeah, I gave a talk at that.
Yeah, that's right. I saw you there. Okay, well, there you go. That's a perfect example of you created a crowd outside of and, in spite of the parties, whatever the hell, and they were concerned. I was at both places, and I'll tell you, man, they didn't know what the hell was going to go on. They were on their best behavior. They didn't know what to do.
Well, yeah, and I think that was unfortunate that they couldn't figure out a way to get into the actual convention itself, because I think it's a mistake if the Mises Caucus looks like a bunch of outsiders coming in to try to, especially if they're perceived as like the Mises Institute, which I love the Mises Institute. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying they have a reputation as being, paleo libertarians. In other words, from the point of view of people who are already sitting in the chairs on the LNC, they're looking at that like some kind of right-wing push to come in and push them out, when that's not really it. It's not so much the Mises Institute caucus, it's the Ludwig von Mises caucus, and which is just supposed to stand for kind of Austrian economic thinking in first place as part of the description of their brand of libertarianism. Nothing right-wing about that at all. He was called the last knight of liberalism. That's his biography, for God's sake. The real kind. And anyway, so I think, that can be played wrong. And if the people of the Libertarian Party who are already really sitting in there think that they're doing just fine, thank you very much, and that they don't need help from a bunch of outsiders coming in doing things, then I guess that would be really unfortunate. But I think if the Mises Caucus comes in and with Tom and Dave and me and whoever and supporting Hornberger, and we're saying, no, of course, this isn't any, paleo libertarian anything. This is libertarianism.
No, I've been through this with Rick Tompkins in 96, trying to make sure that the Libertarian Party didn't take federal matching funds. That would be death knell of whatever. We did in support of Badnarik. We're always on the other guys, Well, what happens is they give you, we've been in the middle. I've been negotiating these deals, and it was, do you get the most recent version of the delegate list? Do you get the really good, the same database of whatever that these guys get? Do you? Do they play those games? You damn freaking skippy they do. And a lot of these people have slowly over the last decade been excommunicated. They've been voted out. It got out in the open and people understood and they did, and you're gone. So it gets better. The reason Nick Sarwark got the unprecedented third term as national chair is because he runs a really good meeting. He takes control of the convention. He moves the process forward. He's an attorney. He knows how to get what, but just because he runs a good meeting doesn't mean he can't get what he wants. And what does he want? Well, he was he was a Cato guy back in college, did something. What he knows these guys. So I'm just going, yeah, of course he does. I mean, I like Nick and his family. We get along fine, but it is definitely has a different goal. Well, what is it? It's the party. The collective. We're going to take our collective and beat up your collective against collectivism. I go, it doesn't work that way. But, you can't argue with him. I don't care. So Bumper coming in this thing, there's a whole bunch of problems that, doing this inside that party he's going to run up against. But fortunately, Bumper knows it. Yeah.
Well, and there's all hard feelings from that Harry Brown stupid stuff, too. But, I was at this, I gave a talk in Fort Worth at the Tarrant County Libertarian Party meeting there the other day, and they had their own little Liberty Fest down there. And I forgot what the hell I was going to say about it.
Something really.
Oh, I know what it was. It was one of these guys was telling me about Tom Woods' Twitter wars with Sarwark, and how Woods told him, "Oh, I'm coming for you. I'm going to depose you."
Let me tell you the behind the scene story on that.
Huh?
I give you all the good on that one. That was good.
Okay, go ahead. Tell me about that, because I think Tom can do whatever he wants. I think what I would really love to see is go ahead and have him run for chair and literally depose Sarwark and take that spot.
And who wants to? I support Nick doing it because he ain't
gonna run for president
because he fills out paperwork good. I don't care. We need somebody to do that. This is what happened. there were two things like that. One, most recent one, was him and Daniel McAdams going on about supporting that guy, legislator in the coup over Maduro of whatever. And who was it came out? Yeah, it was Daniel McAdams came out and goes, yeah, this guy's back. And they went at back and forth, and Ouch quit it, and I didn't read it and don't care, and talked to Nick about why are you taking him on and the Ron Paul Institute on that. That's just dumb. I know, why would you do that? What position are you taking? Well, we should have this guy. And I go, whoa. Why are we taking, certainly as a Libertarian Party, taking a position on anybody in another country doing anything with that? What the hell is that about? Okay? So I'm going, no, you lost me right there. The one before with Woods was, you remember what the issue was? It was him going on about Rothbard. And he said, he just, in some economics class, he just, in a presentation, he's something about positive about Rothbard. And Rothbard saw this coming, whatever, and he goes on to something. Well, the tweet from Nick Sarwark was, the only thing you learned from Rothbard was how to lose elections and not and this and that and so on. And the reason is because that Rothbard and the Mises Institute and Lou Rockwell and Jeff Deist and Ron Paul and Tom Woods and Stephen Kinsella and Bob Murphy and you and all these guys, they see that as they always have since the Lovolution. And I found this out from Angela Keaton. Brian Doherty writes, the book about radicals, back in the day and all the Coctopus. And I go, look, explain this to me. And this is what was going on. As I had, as soon as that happened, I had Tom Woods on that Friday, the week that it happened. I think it was Tom was on Friday, and Nick was on that following Tuesday. Then I had, I think I had Bob Murphy on, and I had Ron Paul on. So I get all these guys within 2 weeks, and I go, all right, give me what's up, This is what was going on. When Tom Woods did this about Rothbard, they have to slap down Mises and Rothbard because they represent no compromise, philosophical, principled arguments in the political realm to educate people. And when they do make a choice, it's a clear choice in why it happened. Because if you don't have a libertarian electorate that voted you in and they understand why, you're not going to last, it's not going to work, and it's not going to stick. You have to have the people educated. That was the idea. Well, Nick was like, well, hell no, we're a political party. We need to be able to get more votes. We need to have more money. We need to have coalitions with blah, blah, blah. And that's why they are never Trump, and they embrace that. And we need to have our coalition with the left and make them bake the cake. And I'm going, are you freaking kidding me? So during all of this, behind the scenes, I have Nick, and you go listen to that show, you hear all about it. That's the battle. That's what the battle has always been. That's what the battle is going to be with Amash and Bumper this time. It's all going to be all about, are we practical? Are we making the right steps toward? Are we, expanding it without changing minds, without educating people, without them knowing what the hell is going on? So I'm not for that. That's why I support Bumper on this thing. Will he capitulate to something? I don't think it's in him.
Nah, he's reliable. And you know what? Believe me, I appreciate all your negativity on the LP. That's why I've never participated in it. I just do my own.
That's why I participate. Slap them around a little bit because they pissed me off in the late 90s and early 2000s here in Arizona. We just wanted to be left alone, but we were getting all the attention and money and the Wall Street Journal, the Libertarian State, Arizona, because we were doing freaking activism. And they're going, You got to be with the program and join the they call it Unified Membership Program, which was you join the National Party and then maybe they gave you some back to the state party. And we're going, what? No.
Yeah, okay, but all of that stuff aside, man, I mean, essentially the bottom line is, are we going to have another Bob Barr nominee, another Gary Johnson, essentially deflated tire to run? Or are we going to have a real badass who is very libertarian and very well informed and educated and principled and will always choose the right thing? I mean, poke Hornberger with a stick and tell him, Venezuela, go. And he'll say, of course, the right thing. Yeah, they're commies, but we should let them stew in it. It's none of our damn business. Right. Simple as that. Everybody knows that. Next. He's good on everything. He's already ready. So
what do you think the most likelihood lineup that he would be up against? You're going well in the local, in the party, and I don't care. But the Democrats, who's shining? We've got Elizabeth Warren at the top now. gag me with a forklift.
Well, whoever the Democrat is, it's going to be a perfect punching bag. See, here's the other thing that I think that Hornberger gets right. Most libertarians, I don't know, at least at one time thought this way, but I think it's important that Constitution aside, I mean, Bill of Rights is the Bill of Rights and everything, but the very bottom line of what makes an American American is the self-evident truth that every individual is born free. Yeah, I'm not good at talking when I'm stoned. Is born free. And that, so therefore you don't have the right to be my king and all of that stuff right there. So in other words, libertarianism is true Americanism direct from the Declaration of Independence. And any liberal or conservatism or socialism or nationalism or any of these things to the right and the left, these are deviations from the true American creed, which is libertarianism. And we're apparently the only ones who understand that. But that means then that we are the real moderate center in a Walter moderate block sense. We are the true centrists, not the extremists, the true moderates who want to live and let live. And that right wingers and left wingers kind of agree with. You know, conservatives and liberals, essentially, they think that they believe in freedom. We just are consistent.
You know, I remember
we have a lot
before
to offer them. I think Hornberger sees it that way is what I'm saying. And so Hornberger, he thinks that the right and the left are deviations away from true Americanism, libertarianism. And I think that's a perfect way to present it to people too. That you liberals and conservatives, you're not that far off. You're just a little bit, but I can help you.
Oh, they're not far off. They know I got to be ruled by somebody. They're just vying for the job. I'm like, no. The whole purpose of government was the defense of individual rights. When it doesn't do that, it's time to alter, abolish. It's your right, your duty. When you're talking about Walter Block, I remember he had a letter that he wrote to, I think it was George W. And it was before we're going into the war. And he goes like this. He says, so this had to be, it was when I first started doing radio, February of 2003. I remember that. And he goes, it was in that spring. And he said, look, before we go into this war, he goes, I tell you what, I'll give you national health care. You want national health care? I'll give it to you because I know how much this war is going to cost. It's going to be way more than that. He goes, I'll give you national health care if you won't go to war. So I'm going, Walter, I'm not, okay. He's willing to make that point. I wouldn't have made that point, but that was the point he was making. You want all this stuff? Fine. Do this to men. At least spend it here, Doing this war thing? Nope. I'm even willing to give you national health care if you don't go to war. That's kind of practical thing. I mean, you threw it out there. Of course, he knew he wasn't.
Wait, what's the point?
That he's willing to compromise on some big giant, oh my God, as long as you won't go to war.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, yeah, no. I mean, never mind how bad liberals and conservatives and Republicans and Democrats are. I'm talking about how well positioned Hornberger is to peel off the good ones. I mean, essentially, in the broadest sense, a liberal is good on NSA's spine. Right? In the broadest sense, a conservative is good on guns. They're good on some things, okay? Conservatives are less bad on capitalism. Socialists and liberals are less bad on cops.
Not much.
Whatever it is. So I'm just saying that I think that Hornberger's in a great position to appeal to those kinds of points of view, the better angels of the left and the right, and show them that they have deviated from the true path of what we're all supposedly celebrating on the 4th of July and all that. So, it's not like some crazy anarchist, to their ears and eyes, anarchist foreign system. It's true Americanism that we're fighting for here. Freedom, but we really mean it. And we understand what we're talking about. Not just as
we as a philosophy, we as a libertarian, or the philosophy says, or this or that, or whatever, or we've spent years and years and years crafting the platform at the Libertarian Party, and then all of a sudden, so they could get Barr in there, they took an 06 in Portland, Oregon, they stripped the entire thing. They just said, nope, we're all done. So I'm going, anyway, since then, screw you guys.
I'm just saying, Harry Brown got a hell of a lot of mileage out of running for president twice in 96 and 2000, and I think it's worth trying to replicate that with Hornberger's run this time as best we can. That's all.
Only Hornberger.
And really, I got to go, man. And was there something else? gotta go.
Nah, we're good. We got you a half hour more than what we thought, so we can yell at each other. But I'm glad that you came on. Let's talk about this. And the real reason for doing this was Tulsi. So just real quick before you go, what's the likelihood that she'll be the Democratic nominee?
Well, you know what? I'm glad that you asked that because, on the face of it, it's not very good. And certainly TV is saying that Hillary's already been coordinated. Forget about it. Whether that's Kamala Harris or whichever one they have settled on, it certainly is not Tulsi Gabbard. And Lord knows the Democratic Party establishment wants absolutely nothing to do with her. So she doesn't have any kind of advantage as far as that goes. But here's her advantage, Ernie. You can't deny it. She's running against Cory Booker and Mayor Pete and Elizabeth Sacagawea and whatever these garbage people that are her opponents. And she's got a lot going for her. And she's got a media that hates her guts. As you said, they wear it all over their face that we don't like her because she's anti-war. But you know what? That's what to like about her. Again, not that she's perfect, but she's a lot better than most of the rest anyway. Bernie Sanders is the only other one who says anything interesting about foreign policy at all. None of us would take that to the bank. So it's essentially meaningless other than to demonstrate that none of the rest of them talk about it at all, other than Kamala Harris saying, hey, Benjamin Netanyahu's the boss of me, whatever he wants. His wish is my command. The rest of them hardly even ever talk about foreign policy whatsoever. But I think that she's got a real strength there. And as I say in that article, if she would get better, if she would drop this whole radical Islam nonsense and focus on blowback and how all this is Bill Clinton's fault in the first place, everybody knows that. And if she would, focus on, all the blowback and all the negative consequences of the war against terrorism, just as bad as the war for terrorism, then I think that she could have her Ron Paul Giuliani moments and she could really make herself build up a lot of momentum. And I mean, who's going to stop her? Again, this guy, the mayor or Beto? Did you see this guy Beto's interview with the Washington Post where they asked him about Syria? And he goes, I've been in the Congress for 6 years and I don't know anything about it. So that's why I think we should have a debate. Or some just this guy's running for president of the United States. God.
Can you see your screen?
That's cool, man.
This is. I'd be quiet a second so you can get it. There you go. Oh,
and that's a good representation of Tulsi, right? Active duty, but anti-war.
But Davi did that, at Pork Fest, just kind of, So anyway, he did a bunch of stuff like that. We'll let you go. Thanks for staying the extra time, Scott. This is awesome.
Yeah, sure. I love talking to you, man. It's been a little while.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it more often, especially as we're getting in the cycle and some stupid war or some economic whatever. It's coming. Whatever. I've been screaming this for ever, but certainly last year I'm like, what the hell? You guys don't. You really that
and
stupid?
And you too, Davi. Sorry I didn't see you, but nice to hear you again.
Yeah, for sure. Good to hear
there
from
he
you.
Is. Well, you don't see him. The audience does.
Yeah, you got it.
Anyway. I assure you I exist.
Yep.
It seems like it.
All right, man. Talk to you later, Scott. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you guys very much.
Bye. Well, that was cool.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
My main thing is that I like, Scott, a lot of people don't know his history. He was like a skateboarder in Austin. He was just calling BS on something, 9/11 or, the war and such. And I remember Charles, that's how I know him, is from Charles Goyette. Charles Goyette would have him on his show here in the Clear Channel station. They were just like, he's like, man, this guy's got it going on. So from there, he went and was doing podcasting. He had a show in Austin, and I think he's broadcast in L.A. and San Diego or something. Where'd you
San
hear?
Diego is where I met him. I don't know if that's where he's from.
He has a show in L.A. No, he's in Austin, or was. I don't know where he is now. He moves. But his wife was an anti-war activist. Is Russian.
Okay.
So that you got that going for you. But and then and he does a lot of good writing and work, and he's just head down plow on the. I know what nobody else is talking about it. Nobody tells you who these people are. It's like, we're negotiating with this terrorist guy that has this militia thing of the whatever, the Iran influence of the Iraq, of the, the Ba'ath Party and the Sunni and Shia and out in the desert, and this line that some, French and British cartographers drew and said, you're in charge now, and signed this contract of, how did our oil get underneath your sand kind of crap. I mean, this has been going on forever. Nobody understands this stuff. Well, Scott does. And I just, thank goodness somebody does. But that kind of surprised me. He came out with the bumper thing. I'm going, I've been saying to the audience about that. I go, this is going to be good. So you can see why. From both of our experiences with it's Jacob Hornberger from Future Freedom Foundation. And I've always known since the 90s as Bumper. Right? It's his nickname. I have no idea why, because. But Jacob Hornberger is a principled man of faith that isn't going to back down. And it has, just like with Ron Paul, for decades, it is a detriment to you breaking out of whatever by their standards. And guys like Ron Paul, he doesn't care. He's like, I don't give a crap what, I don't get to your party. What makes you think I want to go to your party anyway? So, it was that mentality that I equated with Jacob Hornberger, and he will carry that through this kind of camp. And I think he sees, somebody's got to do it. And he's right. Somebody's got to do it. Or not do it, but I'll help somebody like him to do it. What might I do? I don't know. I do stuff. Peace, guys.